Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Thorne, and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast, the podcast that seems to make even less sense every week we record it. Joining me is my co-host, Jake Nelson. Jake, welcome to the show.
Shy haddocks do eat cheese, Adam.
What does that mean?
I don't know. You were saying that the podcast keeps making less sense.
I see.
So.
Yeah, no, you're ahead of me on that one. Now, we normally start off with the shout-outs, but I think this week we should have a bit of a talk about what we were doing at the weekend. I was doing nothing at the weekend because it was both boiling hot and torrential rain, so you can't really do anything in that weather. You managed to get yourself out, though. What did you do, Jake?
Yeah, I was hosting Christmas carols at the Pond School out near Rouse Hill. It was done through the same. It was organised by the same musical theatre company that I did Strictly Ballroom with, and they needed an MC, and so I got to wear the same sparkly jacket that I did on stage, which was possibly a mistake because it was so humid. It was so muggy that day that I ended up getting first-hand experience of what a broiled turkey must feel like.
So you were like sweating underneath this.
Yeah, it was so humid. It just walking outside to go on stage was just like walking into a bowl of soup.
So hang on, so you were the MC, so you were introducing the songs, introducing
the songs, introduced Santa, of course, at the end.
How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing okay. He's getting ready for Christmas, obviously.
Yeah, big flight, long flight.
Oh yeah, no, in his 747 freighter, which we covered last year on Australian Aviation, through his cargo transport company, Jingle Jet. So
yes, of course, yeah.
No, he's doing well. And it did start to rain a bit towards the end, but we did manage to get Santa out there first. So.
What carols were they singing? Like all the big hits, and also did you throw in any like Christmas songs as well? Like did they do like Mariah Carey and stuff?
We didn't do "All I Want for Christmas Is You" by Mariah Carey. There was this little girl who did "All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth," which.
I see. No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's also all the big hits. I led "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" and "Oh Holy Night," and I was part of the "We Three Kings" and "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen." Which, fun fact for those of you who don't know, who are interested in Christmas carols and maybe don't know this, it's not "God Rest Ye, Merry Gentlemen." It's "God Rest Ye Merry, Gentlemen." God rest ye merry being old-timey speak for "May God grant you peace and happiness." So it's "May God give you a restful and merry Christmas, gentlemen."
Oh, it's a great trivia. Now, we're going to talk about the thing we talk about every year on this podcast, which is usually you play a game called Whamageddon. I'm not sure if you're playing it this year. Could you first describe to any new viewers, listeners that have joined the show in the last year, what Whamageddon is? What it involves? I mean,
we discuss it every year on the podcast.
We do.
I mean, yes, but it's a sample size of one.
Yes.
No, Whamageddon is a game where you have to go from the 1st of December through to the midnight on the 24th, so, the start of Christmas Day, without hearing Last Christmas by Wham. Specifically Last Christmas by Wham. Remixes are fine, covers are fine, not the original.
But it counts, so if you go to a supermarket and they're playing the original, then you've lost the game.
Yes, exactly. As soon as you recognize the song, you lose.
So you have to effectively kind of opt out of any kind of Christmas event if you are determined to.
If you're a really sort of hardcore Whamageddon player, then you have to take precautions. I did win Whamageddon last year.
What are the tactics for winning?
So some of it comes down to luck.
Yeah.
Other times it's like, if you're in the car, maybe turn off the radio or play your own playlists. If you're in the shops, maybe try noise cancelling headphones. But I have kind of relaxed a little this year because I am going to a Christmas party in a few days with a Last Christmas theme. Yeah. So I figure I'm probably going to lose then.
Yeah, and there's also Mariah-geddon as well.
Mariah Apocalypse, yes,
okay.
Which is you cannot hear "All I Want for Christmas Is You." That's the hard mode.
Right, let's move on to the shout-outs. Now, let's start off, we did have somebody get in touch with us, which we read out on the previous episode of this, asking for our help. Could you remind the viewers and listeners of the message we got and give them an update? I'm sure they're right.
So we heard from at Burnster787 on YouTube, who is I think 13, 14 years old, and looking to do more flight training. Burnster or Bernie D. reached out to us after that last episode and sort of gave us a bit of an update. He said, hello, Jake and Adam. This is at Burnster787 from YouTube. I listened to the latest Australian Aviation podcast. Thank you for the shout out. Great podcast as usual, obviously.
Yeah.
You were wondering a little bit about my interest in aviation. The final goal is to become a commercial pilot at Qantas, so I would like to start flight training. I started my flight schooling journey at Bankstown Flying School just over a year ago, having gone on 3 flights on the PA-28 about every 6 months. The flight lessons include my introductory flight, effects of controls lesson, and straight and level lesson. I'm very keen to keep going with flight lessons, so I started a web design business with my friend, and we build websites. We work with small businesses, but we haven't made any sales yet, if anyone is interested in a website.
He sounds like our sales guy.
I attached 2 of my best plane spotting photos. Let me know what you think. I also attached some photos of my flight training. Decent photos, I got to say. You know, there's a nice one here of a Qantas Streamliner, and there's a black and white one, which has got a little funky, I think, with the email formatting, so it's difficult to make out. But I think that's an Air New Zealand plane taking off. And yeah, there's a couple of pictures. There's one of him in the cockpit. From the inside, and one of him in the cockpit from the outside. That's his whole. I had a look at his web design site, by the way. It's very schmick.
So he's like 13, 14,
yeah,
about my age, and he set up his own web design business. That is amazing. It's 10 out of 10 for initiative.
Entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, bdwebdesign.com.au.
Because it's got a website set up and everything.
Yeah, it's got a website and everything. So I guess if you're looking to get a website designed,
what's the website called again?
bdwebdesign.com.au. Give Bernie a call.
I would give Bernie a call. Like, if anyone here needs any web design stuff doing, or can help him with the
we don't
training.
Often do free promos here, but I admire this young man and his
100%.
entrepreneurial spirit.
I love that. And also, genuinely, if we can help you in any way, get in touch with us again, and also keep in touch. Let us know how it's all going. That's a good bit of news.
It is.
We got any other shout outs at all?
I believe Othy, who told everyone what timestamp to fast forward to on one of our previous podcasts.
No,
well, he's they've said that they felt heard.
Yeah, good.
When we mentioned them on our last podcast. So we are hearing you again, Othy. This is us hearing you again, and how long? I don't know how long we've been going. We don't really have a countdown clock, but you can probably skip to the timestamp right after we finish talking here, and that's when the news will be.
Why would you want to skip this hilarious banter? That's the best bit about it.
If you're a serious aviation enthusiast, Adam, then you're probably not listening to this podcast, are you?
No, that's true. Have we got any other shout outs, or should we gallop onto the news?
No, I think that's about it. There was one person who commented on our last podcast, when we were talking about the Jetstar uniforms. Yes, be quiet, me. Anthony Jinx 89. We were talking about what happens to the old Jetstar uniforms because they got the new ones in. Anthony says old Jetstar uniforms being returned and will be sent to textile recycling. So that's what's happening to them.
That's good. All right. So that's a shout out. Let's gallop on to the news. Now, we are, as an industry, kind of winding down as we get to Christmas, but we have had a few nuggets of gold. So there, nuggets of gold. Which brings us on to the first story we're going to talk about. Jake, take it away.
Was the nuggets of gold a reference to what story you want me to talk about?
Yes, yeah, it was. It was really witty.
Oh, okay. No, we should save that one till the end. We'll save it till the end, Adam.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, no, let's talk for it is a wild story, but we're going to save it for the end.
He hasn't got the window open on his laptop. That's what's really happened. I don't want to destroy the magic, but that's fine. Good save. Go on.
Yeah, well, disability access, I think, is the first thing we should talk about because it is an important topic. And there's this new advocacy campaign that's been launched featuring disability rights campaigner Shane Hryhorec. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Shane, if you're listening. But Shane and Sophie Morgan of Rights on Flights, they're looking to raise awareness of systemic issues in air travel that result in mistreatment, discrimination, and dangerous situations for disabled passengers. So Shane is the chair of Accessible Beaches Australia. He says that at airports, people are often people with disabilities are often left to fend for themselves or seek the assistance of strangers. They want minimum standards for airlines, including mandatory wheelchair spaces, hoists at every gate, comprehensive staff training on how to support passengers with disabilities. Shane says these standards should be developed in collaboration with people from disabilities, with people with disabilities from diverse sectors to ensure they address the real issues disabled passengers face. And it's shocking. A lot of the things that happen with disabled people. There's like videos of people like having to crawl down the aisles of planes, and that wheelchairs getting banged up, and people getting stuffed around with their wheelchairs. Even former Australian of the Year Dylan Alcott. Famous people with disabilities are being basically stuffed around when they and mistreated when they get on planes, and it's terrible.
I've been doing this job now for 5 years, and the amount of stories we've run and the amount of stories you've seen in the mainstream media as well on this, these aren't isolated incidents. It happens again and again and again. So there is some kind of like structural problem. Some of the things that can come up is perhaps, and I'm sure everybody's sort of heart is in the right place, the particular crew they're dealing with, or the people from the airlines don't necessarily know in those instances what to do. We've had God knows how many incidents where maybe a wheelchair's not been kind of stored correctly and it kind of gets spat out the other end.
And those are expensive.
Yeah, very, very, very expensive. And also just like it's genuinely humiliating and demeaning if you have to go through that experience, and even more humiliating and demeaning when you get to the other end and your wheelchair's broken.
Yeah.
So it does feel that there are underlying issues in the industry. I know the white paper as well spoke about this a little bit too.
It did, yeah. So this was back when the white paper was announced. It was one of the headline items, improving disability access. So the government's looking to create aviation-specific disability standards. It wants airlines and airports to coordinate disability assistance. It requires airport development plans to detail their disability access. Also requires airlines to offer passenger assistance profiles that passengers can use to list their accessibility requirements in future bookings, which is a good move because there's Shane and the advocates are complaining like every time we book a new flight, we have to go through and list all the stuff that we need again. Like, we have to say what our disability is. We have to fight with people on the phone over this. There should be just a profile that you can send to the airlines and say, this is what I need, without having to tell them every single time.
Yeah, you shouldn't be on the phone having to kind of argue your case before every flight. That's awful. I would say, Shane, if you are listening, and we might try and reach out, we'd love to have you on this show. And we'd love to hear some kind of anecdotes about the things that go wrong here, because it's only when you raise raise awareness of these things that anything actually gets done. Again, I do believe that all of the airlines and all of the staff, their kind of heart is in the right place. But unless you have that training, unless you have the policies and procedures in place, then things will slip through the net. And I think it's quite shameful. Particularly in Australia, it's a country that is very reliant on aviation. If you're, say, a business person and you're traveling regularly, you can't have this thing happen time and time and time again. So there is no excuse in today's day and age for there not to be improvements.
And Shane says of the white paper, he says these are positive steps, but people with disabilities want to see more. We don't want to wait until 2026 to see these changes implemented. We need action now. He says collaboration with people with disabilities and experts is critical to ensure these initiatives meet the needs of the community and deliver meaningful change. And there have been some moves from airports in recent years. We discussed, I believe it was last year, Sunshine Coast Airport has put in this new. This is for blind and visually impaired, but this is Bendy Maps, which is this technology that uses Bluetooth beacons and smartphone sensors to basically help blind and visually impaired people navigate in real time. And it was the first in Australia to install Bendy Maps. So we interviewed Anna Wright, who is the founder and CEO of Bendy Maps, who basically told us, how this works. It's 10 to 20 times greater accuracy than Google satellites and GPS. It can go to 1 to 2 meters accuracy indoors, which is very impressive. And it's designed by and for people who need this to get around, while also still having utility for for people without visual impairments. We've had Melbourne Airport as well earlier this year sort of start a trial of these new disability access hubs. So several of them have opened across the airport to help disabled passengers navigate car parks, check-in, baggage halls, pick-up and drop-offs. So they offer like accessible information, buggy transfers, wheelchair transfers, sensory packs, communication boards for non-verbal travellers, lanyards and information for the Hidden Disability Sunflower program. So we are seeing steps from airports, at least some airports, but there definitely needs to be more done and a more coordinated effort across the industry, I think, to improve disability access.
Yeah, like you said there earlier, 2026 is when we would hopefully see changes,
Yeah.
but that's too far away.
It's too far away.
In today's world of a ton of technology we've got in the money that swims around aviation, there is no excuse in the world that the changes cannot be made. Maybe it's case you have some kind of shorter term changes that could come in the next 6 months, and then longer term things that could happen in the future. But it should be dead easy. You shouldn't be, arguing on the phone. So I think that's an absolutely fantastic initiative, and do get in touch if you are involved with that. We would love to have you on the show early next year to talk about this. Okay, welcome back. So, what are we going to talk about next, Jake? What's up next?
This is kind of an interesting one. We've spoken a bit about domestic business travel on the show, and how that's kind of affecting the domestic recovery and how that's sort of down. People just aren't going to business meetings interstate anymore. They're using Zoom or heaven forfend Teams. But we've had some data out from Flight Centre, their corporate traveller division, and apparently corporate travel to regional Australia was up 13% year on year in the September 2024 quarter, and that's Mackay, Newcastle, Cairns, Townsville, and the Gold Coast are among the top regional destinations. The Flight Centre says that demand for regional travel is robust, and this is despite these capacity constraints and the whole, turmoil in the sector after the liquidation of Bonza and the voluntary administration of Rex. A lot of this is being bolstered by economic growth in the mining and clean energy sectors. So Tom Wally, the managing director, the global managing director of Corporate Traveller, who's based in Australia, says that we expect the demand for regional travel to maintain this rate of growth as more investment pours into these areas, particularly in the renewable energy sector. The strong growth in regional destinations reflects the expanding opportunities in these hubs. It's essential for the aviation industry to support this growth to ensure capacity keeps up with demand and airfares remain competitive.
It's also interesting as well, like if regional growth is strong, again, it's more arguments that perhaps Bonza did have a little bit of a point.
It is. You'd have to think so. Now, granted, Bonza was mainly targeting the leisure market, but there, leisure and VFR was sort of where Bonza was aiming at rather than business. It did sort of get like corporate and business travel spun up towards the end, but it's. And you have to imagine that a lot of this possibly is driven by things like FIFO, particularly if it's to do with mining and renewable energy. People needing to fly out to mine sites or fly out to work sites for the renewable energy projects. That would definitely uplift the business and corporate travel side of things.
And it'll be very interesting to see as we go into next year whether we are going to get back to kind of 100% pre-COVID recovery for domestic. At the moment, the recovery has kind of been very patchy, very different to how we thought it would be. But it does seem like there are positive shoots for recovery.
And speaking briefly, by the way, of renewable energy, we've had a release from Queensland Airports Limited. Gold Coast and Townsville airports are going to be buying 100% renewable energy starting midnight on New Year's Eve.
They're not messing about,
on New Year's Day.
No, they're
going right into it. From 1st of January, they're going right to 100% renewables.
So is that to keep lights on and
to run the whole airport, basically. They're going to be buying energy from, I believe it's CS Energy is the company, and they're going to be, getting their energy from solar farms, from the Kennedy Energy Park. So it's part of their whole net zero by 2030 push. Good on them. It's green power for air conditioning, lighting, baggage carousels, wayfinding, everything.
It can be done, basically. It can be done. If there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah, and you get a lot of you'll get the usual suspects coming on and saying, "Oh, well, I hope they don't have any flights at night or whatever." But it's like we've got to. I think we've got to start leaving these attitudes behind to get on a soapbox for a moment. Renewable energy has proven to be. Has come down in terms of cost, and it's cheap, and it's cheaper and more reliable now than it ever was in the past. And as coal-fired power stations and fossil fuel-fired power stations continue to age, renewables can be sort of spun up more quickly and cheaply than alternatives such as, for example, nuclear.
And it's also interesting, but whether you're kind of pro or against sort of renewable energy, the more energy sources you have, the better. The more things you have in your mix, the more secure you are as a country. So to me, it seems like an absolute no-brainer that you wouldn't try to shift the industry towards this. That you can have an airport. It's a great case study almost outside of aviation. That you can have a huge complex like an airport with all the complexity. If they can manage to make it work within a matter of weeks, that is fairly extraordinary, and that is a great example to the rest of the industry.
Yeah, I believe that they're not cutting themselves off from the grid. I believe they are still connected to the grid. It's just they will be buying all of their energy from these sources.
Yeah.
And it's I mean you can make jokes about don't have flights at night, but you don't run out of sunshine.
To be fair, there's no solar panels on the aircraft when they're going up, but it's not like this is your captain speaking.
Wait, maybe there should be, Adam. Get a little bit of extra juice in there.
But it looked like a satellite then, wouldn't
it? Queensland Airport's not the first this year to say that it'll be going 100% renewable. Cairns Airport will be going to 100% renewables as well from early next year. So good news for airports in Queensland who are looking to get a little greener.
Well done. I'm saying that. Right, what's up next?
So up next, we've... Just very quickly, we've had a breakthrough in the Donata ground handlers industrial action. TW and Donata have reached a deal, and so there will be a pay rise and improvements in rostering for ground workers who work at Donata. So they were going to strike for 24 hours on Wednesday. That has now been called off. So congratulations to them. We've had an update as well, and this is just sort of a reminder for anyone who might have been affected by the SeaWorld helicopter crash in January 2023. Time is running out to get claims in if you were, injured or, psychologically harmed by that. That does sort of run out on the claims do sort of run out on the anniversary of that accident, 2 years. So that's early 2025. So Peter Carter of Carter Kapner Lawyers, who's an aviation lawyer, has put out this release saying, get your claims in now if you were affected, otherwise you may miss out.
Now, obviously, all aviation accidents and fatal accidents are very, very tragic. This was particularly extraordinary because it happened on one of, the most popular beaches, most famous beaches in Australia, sort of at the middle of a day. Was it Boxing Day or it was
early January. I think it was.
Yeah. So it was in that kind of Christmas holiday period where people were off, the kids were out. So it's a very, very difficult thing. I know the ATSB investigation.
Yeah, this was the 2nd of January.
That's it. Yeah, so 2nd of January. So it was a very, very tragic thing. A lot of people would have witnessed that. Okay, welcome back. So what's up next? I always say it's becoming a terrible catchphrase, isn't it? What's up next? I just think I can probably do better than that. But
it's hello everybody and welcome to the Australia Aviation Podcast and what's up next? And let's go for another quick break.
All right, don't analyse it too much. We could a robot.
I mean, if we did have a robot, we could program it with those phrases, and it'd be able to do at least a serviceable job. I think.
So, presumably with AI and stuff and voice, but they could probably just get a bot to do this.
Potentially, but we shouldn't say that too loud, otherwise they might get ideas.
If you were to swap roles and you were to kind of introduce the podcast, how would you do it? Well, because that's the thing. It looks easy from the outside, Jay. Oh yeah, it just comes out with a few catchphrases. The pressure I'm under is enormous. Like you don't see. The sleepless nights before, all the stuff I have to go through. So what would you?
Well, when you were away and I had to introduce the podcast, I just did an impression of you. So I don't know if I can be talking. Anyway, speaking of going away for the holidays, we've had some news from Qantas Freight, who are saying that their freight volumes are expected to be up by 5% from last year. So Qantas Freight is expecting to deliver more than 50,000 tons of international and domestic freight over the holidays. Its domestic freighter fleet will fly around 550 additional hours over November and December, which will add 3,000 tons of domestic capacity. Now, Christmas season, obviously, always a huge time for freight and for freight deliveries. What I wanted to talk about is that they've put this special livery on one of their A321 freighters, VHXF4. It's been put in this like Santa's freight livery. They've changed the Q to an S and put an apostrophe in there, and they've also like decorated it with presents. And they've got like actually Santa up the back, holding his sack, which is like attached to the tail of the plane, which I think is cute.
So they've actually changed the rego?
No, they haven't changed the rego. It's still the same rego, but they've put they've changed Qantas Freight on the side to Santa's Freight.
I see what they've done there. Yeah. It's actually quite clever, the graphics they've done, isn't it? Where you've got Santa kind of pulling, so it works in with the red tail. The kind of tail continues to, it's like a sack that Santa's carrying.
But I'm leading into this because we're at the tail end of the show, so to speak. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about here was Qantas has also put some special Christmas livery on a couple of its passenger planes. There's a 737-800 which has been renamed Rudolph.
Nice, very witty.
And there's a Dash 8 which I think has been called Dasher 8.
That was an easy one, wasn't it? Yeah.
But one of the bones, I have a bone to pick with Qantas over this, because the Rudolph
down tools, he's angry again.
The Rudolph plane, right?
Yeah.
You call it Rudolph, but it doesn't really have any reindeer stuff on it. It's just got Santa. It doesn't have antlers. It doesn't have a red nose.
No.
Why would you call a plane Rudolph and not put a red nose on it, Qantas?
No, I see what you're saying. But surely, would there be any? And I'm not an expert on aircraft liveries. Would there not be some kind of restrictions involved in putting a red nose on the nose of the aircraft?
Well, I mean,
I don't know
you
if
can
that's
just.
like a safety
I don't mean like putting a giant ball. on
No, I
the
mean
end.
just painting it. Like, I don't know if there's.
I'm not sure. I mean, surely some planes have had different coloured. There's probably planes everywhere with different coloured paint on their noses.
Okay.
But why would you not? Why would you call a plane Rudolph and not give it a red nose?
Now, I'm also not. So, all right, I take that on board. Now, I'm not an expert in aerodynamics by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that putting some antlers on the side of it.
I'm not talking like gluing giant pipe cleaner structures to the side. Just put some antler stickers on it.
Yeah.
If you're going to call it Rudolph, make it look like Rudolph.
No, I do see that. I mean, it was just a nice little touch. But I mean, what they could do, perhaps, like, could they not paint a Father Christmas kind of riding on top of it, or maybe just stick a?
Well, they've got Santa on the side.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
but it's like as a connoisseur of the fine and definitely not fine pun.
Yeah,
it rankles me, Adam. It rankles me. It's a waste of a perfectly good pun, and I think Qantas should know better, and I think they should apologise to me personally.
Are you because you've emceed, hosted this carol concert? Are you a big Christmas guy?
I do like Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm not myself a religious person, but I like the spirit of the season. The togetherness, the giving. It's the most wonderful time of the year, as the song says. I like Christmas. Yeah.
What's the best Christmas present you've ever received?
The best Christmas present I've ever received. No, that was a birthday present. It's I couldn't really say. There's been a few over the years. It sounds boring, but my partner got me a really nice towel the other year.
Oh, nice! Like one of the Egyptian soft ones.
Yeah, like a really, really nice one from what's the name of the company that makes a nice towel? Sheridan, I think.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, very nice towel.
Yeah.
And we've had it's there's been some good. Let's turn this back. What's the best Christmas present you've ever received?
Super Nintendo, obviously. Super Nintendo, Super Mario All Stars, 2 controllers. I mean, and also it was a Christmas and birthday present combined, which I think is a bit of a cheat because then you get like a lesser present on your birthday. So my birthday's in March. But that was amazing. That was definitely the highlight.
You have to feel sorry for people who are born in December, don't you? Because they would get their Christmas and birthday presents at the same time, which would be just a waste.
Now I would say if you are, who's that guy from Media Watch?
Well, it was
presenter.
Paul Barry.
He's gone. So
he's
they're
gone.
currently without.
He's gone now.
Mrs. Gibbs.
They've brought in a new guy.
In the darkness where that show cuts out. If you are from Media Watch, just turn this off now. We love Christmas presents. Luxury Egyptian towels, games consoles, anything really. Model aircraft. We still need more stuff. If you watch it on YouTube, we need more stuff for our shelving unit there. But we love presents.
Got a lovely card from the Transport Minister's office as well.
Oh, really nice, very very nice. Actually, tell them what it said. What it was. Who it was. It was directed to.
Well, the handwriting was a bit unclear. It was definitely to Jake, and I'm not sure if the second word was family or it kind of looked like it said Fang.
Fang, yeah.
So I don't know if you're Fang.
Doesn't sound like they really care about me, does it?
But it was nice of them to think of us, definitely. And thank you to the Transport Minister's office. We've had good relations with them over the course of the year.
So if you want to send us a Christmas card as well, I'm not sure I'm allowed to give the address to Momentum Media, who owns Australian Aviation. It's on Google. But cards, presents, Santa's sleigh, or any Christmas stories you've got as well, send them over.
You would concur, Adam. We've probably got time for one or two more stories before we go.
We have the big one coming.
We do, but before that,
go on.
Before that, this is probably the second craziest story that we've seen this week. The first craziest is a real doozy, but this was something of a comedy of errors that the ATSB found.
Yes.
So there was a Rex Saab 340B that caught fire 2 years ago on the tarmac at Melbourne Airport.
On the tarmac. It wasn't in the air.
It was not in flight. But it was. It basically was just a domino effect of one small thing turning into another thing, into another thing, into another thing, till just snowballed into a complete schmozzle. And by schmozzle, I mean a seriously bungled evacuation. So
let's start at the beginning. Yeah. Let's talk us through second by second at the beginning how this
what left this Rex flight seconds from disaster.
Go
so
on.
So the first thing that happened was that they were starting up the engines. Ground crew member disconnected the ground power unit from the left engine too early.
Right.
So interrupted start as part of the checklist. The captain motors the engine, so runs the starter motor without supplying fuel to purge any residual fuel.
Nice, yeah, I get that.
Now, as part of this process, there was it can sometimes be expected for there to be a plume of smoke and fire.
Yeah.
The marshaller on the ground did not know this.
No.
And
it
so,
sounds like the sort of thing that person should probably know.
Yeah. And so they gestured to the flight crew, fire in the left engine, shut it down. Captain stops the motoring. So there's still burning fuel inside the engine.
Right.
The fire is not extinguished. Captain shuts down both engines, discharges the left engine fire extinguisher. They order the evacuation of the aircraft without telling the first officer in advance, thus limiting the opportunities of the first officer to contribute to the identification and management of the situation.
So all of these people, so basically, effectively...
It's not finished yet.
Go on, go on.
At the time, the flight attendant was in the middle of using the public address system. So the captain played 4 chimes to order the evacuation. The flight attendant did not recognize that the chimes were an evacuation signal.
So what?
The flight attendant did not recognize the chimes as an evacuation signal.
You'd think that's one of the first things they're trying to recognize.
Probably. Did not react to the command. So they did not know that an evacuation was required until the captain opened the flight deck door and said this directly. Then, when the passengers were ordered to evacuate, the flight attendant provided limited instructions. Passengers in the emergency row did not open the right overwing exit, which delayed the evacuation, and some passengers took their baggage with them. So all in all, the evacuation took 4 minutes via the right front door only, and there were 2 reported minor injuries, one with passenger with a knee injury, another passenger with a grazed elbow. Meanwhile, because the aircraft did not communicate the problem and its nature directly to air traffic control, aviation rescue and firefighting was delayed by 2 minutes.
So there wasn't actually a real issue with the aircraft?
No.
And so there's actually nothing wrong with the aircraft. Effectively, this is all kind of
there wasn't anything wrong with the aircraft when they started.
Yeah, no. And then this comedy of errors, this total farce has happened. it also, like, so basically nothing's happened. Nobody involved seemed to really know what the hell's going on. That seemed to be the upshot. They didn't have the faintest idea what they were doing. It's like Chinese whispers. One thing leads to another. And then all of these passengers are scrambling to get out. They're probably like, I'll take my bag with me because this is ridiculous. But there's obviously been some kind of scramble where there's like, damaged knees, grazed elbows, all that kind of stuff. They're kind of rushing to get off. 4 minutes as well. The sub 340B, not the biggest aircraft. I would like to think if they can, when they had the incidents with Japan Airways flight in January, the A350, 900, I think. If they could get them all off in a couple of minutes or whatever, they could get them all out. How on earth it took 4 minutes? 4 minutes to get off. I mean, that's a shambles, isn't it?
So
it's not even just land.
The ATSB at an organisational level found that that Rex did not provide flight crew or ground crew recurrent training to review hand signals required to communicate with each other, including those required in an emergency. Additionally, although flight crew were required to notify ground crew if an evacuation was necessary, Rex did not provide guidance to ground crew on the actions to be taken in the event of an evacuation. So some of this was a systemic problem at Rex.
Yeah.
But it's kind of boggling to think that if one person had done something slightly differently at any point in this chain of events, it might not have turned out to be a debacle.
Well, it's interesting because the ATSB quite rightly have this idea of a kind of a no
blame situation
investigation. And what that means is that they firstly don't in the reports use anyone's that's like kind of full name. They might talk about job titles, etc. And they also do it from the point of view that we investigate not so that people get into trouble, but so that we can learn lessons. And then that's done in order to encourage everybody to kind of speak freely, which is obviously a very good idea. Every so often, they will write a report where you can read between the lines that someone's really messed this up. We can't really hide the fact this is bad. This does sound like one of those occasions where they're just like head in their hands, like, what have you lot been doing?
Yeah. So that was the second most insane story that crossed our desk
one
this
of the
week.
most stupid stories we've done this year. But incredibly, there's something that makes this look like an almost routine incident. Mm-hmm. Not our story. We did not get this as an exclusive. I think this is possibly the most extraordinary story of the year. If there was a Huey Award for Story of the Year, this would win it. I don't even know where to begin with this. Almost like, just go. Just tell her. You thought about how you're going to tell this. It's extraordinary.
So a woman last year who brought a gold-plated handgun.
A golden gun. A golden gun.
The woman with the golden gun.
Right.
Who had come to Australia to attend clown school.
Whoa. We've got a golden gun. We've got a clown stool. Go on.
So a woman this woman from Florida, because of course she is from Florida, has been sentenced to a year behind bars for bringing I cannot stress enough, 24-carat gold-plated handgun.
A golden gun, yeah.
Through Sydney Airport security. Now, this
on her way to clown college or whatever.
On her way to clowns. This is the story. Yeah. This is a story that just keeps on giving. Like every time I've read something to try and continue putting this story together, something else insane has jumped out at me. So this 3,000. So this is Liliana Goodson of Florida. She's now 30 years old. She was arrested in April 2023. Border Force officers found this $3,000 pistol in her luggage. She's pleaded guilty to illegally importing a firearm and ammunition. She'd come here, she'd come here to attend clown school and told police that she brought the gun for protection. She said she was scared to shoot it.
So basically she probably doesn't like clowns and she's going to clown school.
Well,
so she brings a gun for protection.
I think she developed a bit of a case of paranoia due to the drugs that she was on.
Right.
So she thought she needed this gun for protection, but she was scared to shoot the gun.
Right.
And so she figured that like pointing a golden gun at someone would probably intimidate them into backing off, which, to be fair,
it would.
You have to imagine it would.
Yeah.
And if that failed, apparently she told officers that she could just pistol whip.
Good God.
Now, she the officers, asked her if she had anything to declare. She said no. They said, "What about this gun in your bag?" She was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that."
I can understand if you've got too much liquid, or if a bit of deodorant gets into your hand luggage. I don't know how you forget about any kind of gun, particularly not a golden gun.
Yeah, so she said that she'd forgotten about the gun, but when they looked through her phone, they found that she had Googled, "Can I have a gun in my suitcase?"
I don't know why you need to Google that. The answer's no. No, you can't.
And created a calendar reminder to put gun in suitcase.
Oh, dear.
Apparently regularly careless with firearms as well, because she'd had in America a couple of more guns which she'd accidentally given away by putting them in a donation box.
I mean, also, I don't think this is the sort of person, from what we've heard, that should have been allowed to buy a gun in the first place.
Well, that's why that's why you're not an American, Adam, because in America we believe in the freedom of everyone to own a firearm under the Second Amendment, even if they regularly leave them in donation boxes and try to bring them through airport security on their way to clown school.
So, I mean, there's still more to get to. I mean, I don't understand how she managed to get the gun through Florida's international airport in order to
I think it was in her checked baggage.
Yeah. Still, though, you'd like to think that's...
So hang on. When this is from news.com.au. When the ABF officer, she asked if there was anything in her bag they should know about, she replied, "Maybe some scissors." She was then asked if she had a gun, to which she replied, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." She told officers she wasn't sure if she had ammunition in her bag alongside the valuable weapon. Again, a $3,000 24-karat gold-plated handgun. However, she admitted that she had shipped 50 rounds of ammunition to Australia, which were the wrong size for the gun.
So she couldn't even use the gun because she got the wrong ammunition for it.
Yeah, I believe she declared various animal parts, including from cats and rabbits.
So what?
From cats and rabbits.
Animal parts.
Animal parts. I don't know what kind of animal parts, Adam. Don't ask me. This has gotten too insane already. But and of course she was from Florida. She is the essence of Florida woman.
Yeah. So what's the stage is that she's been found guilty.
She has pled guilty.
So we were all right legally.
She has been sentenced to 12 months behind bars.
I think that's quite lenient.
Four of which full-time custody. She has also been given, I think, a $1,000 fine and been ordered to be on good behavior for the next 2 years. And she has to, and upon her release, she has to participate in drug counseling, which I think is sensible. And look, I do hope that she gets the help that she needs, because, I mean, there's nowhere to go from here but up, right? If you get caught bringing a gold-plated handgun to your clown college course, that's the kind of thing that, that's rock bottom.
So hang on, so as far as we know, she's going to be put in an Aussie prison.
I believe so.
And then presumably when she's finished her stint there, they're going to kick her back to Florida.
I suppose. I'm not up on all the details, but that's what's happened. That is, but look, I do have my suspicions. She said she was coming to Australia to attend clown school, but I think we all know that the woman with the golden gun was actually trying to steal the Solex agitator and kill James Bond.
Yeah, I mean, so as we are recording this, Jake is part way through writing this up. It should be online now. I've told him, if you can't come up with a good headline for this, I mean, this is gold. This is gold. So we wait with bated breath to see what he's come up with. Also, so she's going to go in a prison, presumably, we don't know for sure, she's going to go in an Aussie prison. And I'd imagine when you're in prison, I've never been, the first thing the prisoners do is be like, "Oh, what are you in for?" And she's like, "You're not going to believe this." Well, it's a hell of a story. It is a hell of a story.
And it's, I think, the kind of story that she'll be able to dine out on for the rest of her life.
I would imagine when they're all getting like their terrible dinner and they're all sat around one big table. If I were like the head lag, we call them lags in the UK, if I was like the head lag there in the prison, I would be like, "Boys, girls, whatever, on your feet." Like, this is ridiculous. She will be a legend. I don't want to in any way actually, no, I don't care. I am humouring that ridiculous crime. That is ridiculous.
It is.
You get a standing ovation for that.
Yeah, but I do hope that she gets the help she needs to, get off drugs and clean slate and rethink her
life choices,
firearm safety habits.
Just extraordinary. Well, that is without doubt the story of the year. I don't think we can do anything more on this show after that. I think that is about as, I think you agree that's about as good as it gets.
Probably, yeah.
Well, on that note, we almost need to have the end of the bomb, we're going brrrr, and there's like the chord they play. Yeah,
maybe. But next week is our last show for the year, isn't it?
It is our last show of the year. I'm sure we're going to plan some stuff which I've not told Jake about yet, which is going to be very, very good. It's going to be an audio-visual experience.
Will it involve golden handguns? Because
if it could do, I would get some in. What we need to do is get a golden handgun and put it on the shelving unit as a tribute to the greatest story we'll ever cover on this show.
Well, doesn't Steve have a like a pin on his desk? I think I've seen it.
Actually, good save with the pin. Yes, he might do. We'll tap him up. Anyway, we'll be back on the show the same time next week. Before we go, thank you, Jake, for joining us.
Thank you, Adam.
And I'm now going to see we're going to be back on the show next week, which is another one of my terrible phrases, which I just apparently just blurt out like a robot, which is the point you made earlier. Maybe next week when we return, we'll switch seats and Jake can do Jake can do the stressful work. Anyway, we will be back this time next week. But for now, for me and Jake, goodbye.
Goodbye.